Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just waiting for people to show up before we get started. Although our start time is 10 o'clock Pacific time, which is just a minute away. This will last about an hour and a half, give or take. It's sometimes a little longer. And we're mostly covering all the Dash features and some of which are add-ons or specific to various plans. But looks like we are at 10 o'clock Pacific time, so let's go ahead and get started. Here we see our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also navigate there from the virtualpbx.com website. You'll see a blue bar across the top or towards the top of the page. There's a login link there as well as a support link. As an admin, you probably are going to want to bookmark this page. And to log in, we need first your username, which is your email address, password, which should have been emailed to you, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you don't remember your information, like your password, over here to the bottom right, you have a forgot your info link, which is right above the sign-in bar. You can click on that. We still need your email address. But then we need either the account name or a phone number on the account, one or the other. We don't need both. And then you click on Reset Password. You'll get an email and with a link that lets you log in. And essentially at that point, you create a new password, right? Once you do that, the system logs you back out. So you're back here and where you can log in and you have the opportunity to click on the Remember Me box. Now this is a test account, so I've logged into this several times. So by default, I'm being sent here to the dashboard. For you, if it's your first time logging in, you're actually taken to your account page. And you can always get there by clicking at your name at the top here. And here is where you can see my email and my password, etc. And I can change my password here if I needed to. Also, as an admin, I can click here and click on account. And I can change like the account time zone if I want to. Now, if you do decide to change your account name, I do ask that you let our billing team know, billing at virtualpbx.com. There'll be other things that they need to adjust on their side to make sure everything syncs up properly on your account. Additionally, on your accounts, you have additional section over here under user for your billing information. This is where you would update your credit card information, for example, or you could see your service plan, see your invoices, or even update who the billing contact person is. When you're done here, we just click on close and it takes you back to the dashboard. This is probably where you'll be most of the time when you're adjusting your system or making any kind of changes. Up here at the top, again, we click on your name, get you back to that account page. Now, many of you will have a D&D toggle, D&D as in do not disturb, right? If it's white, that means it's active, right? If you click on it, it'll be mostly black. That means it's not active. The reason I don't have one here is because my user is part of an Acd Cue, and do not disturb and Acd Cues don't mix very well. Then we got the little question mark icon here. This takes you to some additional options. First up is chat with us. This will open up the chat window so you can talk to our support team. They can walk you through a particular feature you're looking at. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages so you can look at a specific guide. The web phone only shows up after you've added a web phone to your user. And this will open up a new tab that takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls from your computer. And then the online store link, this takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone. Here we got the hamburger or menu icon. We're on dashboard here, but we can go to these other features of Dash. Some of them are plan specific or add-ons, so I'll make sure to note those as we go through. And then we have the logout icon. Here in the center, we've got my total users. So these are people who are on my account who can make and receive phone calls. Right, so if I'm on a per user plan, each user I add increases my bill. Down here, I have total devices and a breakdown. So first up is soft phone. Soft phone means it's a software application that acts as a phone, right? So it's going to use your internet connection to make and receive calls, which is definition of VoIP, right? Voice over Internet Protocol. Soft phone, again, it could be on a computer, it could be on a cell phone, it could be on a tablet. This can be the VirtualPBX soft phone application. It could be someone else's soft phone application. Then we have the web phone. Again, uses Chrome or Firefox. Web phone is technically a subtype of soft phone, right? Because a web browser is software, right? It was just a later addition to the system as an available device, so it was separated out. Cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. And then down here we have SIP phone. So SIP is a kind of physical VoIP phone, right? So it's a phone that sits on your desk, right? You can pick up a handset, hit the dial pad. There are multiple types of VoIP phones on the market. SIP is just one of them. So if you're shopping for a physical phone, make sure that it is SIP compliant or SIP compatible. Down here, you see I have unregistered devices. The system is saying I have 3. Basically, it's saying 3 of my VoIP devices are not connected or not registered, meaning I can't send calls to them. Right, total numbers, I have 19 phone numbers. These are customer-facing phone numbers. Right, so they can be one of my main numbers that you see up here to the top right. They can be a number that goes directly to one of my users, a number to one of my ring groups, or one of my queues. Now, typically your plan includes anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. So I'm probably paying a little overage here per phone number per month. Then I have a breakdown. First breakdown here is assigned numbers and spare numbers. An assigned number means I'm using it. That means someone can dial a number and expect to either get to a person, a voicemail, or a conference, or a fax. Right? It's going to connect in some fashion. Spare number, that means it's a number on my account, so it counts towards my allotment, but I'm not currently using it. So if someone dials it, they're going to get a busy tone. Right? It could be from a promotion that just ended and I don't want calls on it, or it could be I had, it got 10 numbers in sequence and I just haven't got to the last couple. All right, next breakdown, I have US DID and then US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. US DID, that just means a US local number, right? So if you want a phone number in Buffalo, New York, that's great. It will count as a US DID. You can have another number, say in Chicago, another in Seattle, etc. You can have international phone numbers if you are so interested. You are going to want to contact our porting team. Basically, just send them an email at porting@virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in. Excuse me. They'll check it to see if there's additional requirements. Those additional requirements comes from the country that you're interested in, right? Their telecom regulatory body may have additional requirements. Some don't. So it will just depend. So if there are additional requirements, they'll let you know. Once we have those, then we can get the number to you. Conference bridges, I have 3. That means I have enabled 3 of my users to host or moderate a conference. Over here to the top right, I've got my main number. So these 3 numbers, they act in the same way. They go to the same place. They have the same main greeting. Next up, I've got my conference number. I have 1. I can have multiple if I want to. But this is a phone number everyone calls to get to the conferences, right? Whether they're my staff members, they're my vendors, they're my customers, what have you, they all dial this number initially. Then I got my fax box number. This is my inbound fax number. Right? That's what people dial to send me a fax. Then I have the company directory. This downloads a text file. Actually, I think it's a CSV file now, excuse me. And it shows your users and their extensions. And I believe they're VoIP devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file, then upload it to the desktop soft phone application from us. This will allow you to see the presence or status of your other users that make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, this only applies to the VirtualPBX soft phone. So if you have a user that has a physical VoIP phone, right? Let's say they have a Polycom phone and the soft phone, you'll only see the status of them on the soft phone, right? So if they happen to be on their Polycom phone, you won't know that. All right, store discount code. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store. And then the account realm. This is used in a couple things. One, it's used to program a third-party application or device, right? So you're using a soft phone from someone else, right? So from Counterpath. This is one of the 3 key pieces of information you would need to make that application work with us. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. On Dash, sending out a fax is via email, right? So you create an email normally, like you're emailing your cousin Bob. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code and phone number, the @ symbol, and then the account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF and click send. Just one attachment per fax. All right, up here, we have the caller ID. This is the company caller ID. Now this pull down will, unfortunately, my streaming software doesn't like all pull downs, but you can select any of your main numbers, and that will become your default outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. All right, next up, we have the company caller ID name or CNAME. This can be 15 characters, including special characters or spaces. Right, this would be information we send out in addition to your phone number as part of your outbound caller ID. Once you click on Save Changes, this gets sent out to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to get that all updated. So then whenever you make an outbound call, that's the information we transmit, right? And as long as your call goes through a carrier that supports CNAME, that information will go through. Now, unfortunately, not every carrier supports CNAME. Some just choose not to, and usually that's a small or regional carrier, right? Any big name carrier you heard of probably supports CNAME, at least in some fashion. And one thing to keep in mind of is that the destination device, right? That device and that network, right? Whatever carrier they're on, those two have the final say about what shows up on that phone. So if you're calling, say, an AT&T cell phone, right? AT&T Wireless gets to decide what shows up on that cell phone's display. Usually that's not going to be a business CNAME information, right? That's usually, I know I'm an AT&T subscriber, and last I checked, if I wanted CNAME to show up for every call that comes in, I have to pay AT&T an additional monthly fee. And then on top of that, right, the phone itself, right, if it has if the person you're calling has your phone number programmed in, whatever they labeled you as will supersede whatever we send. All right, then we have the company emergency information, or E911. This is for North America. This is for US and Canada companies. Basically, you just put an address here and click on Save Changes. Each phone number can have an address associated with it, and that means each VoIP device, you can select which E911 you have associated with that VoIP device. So that way, if someone picks up their VoIP phone and dials 911, you can have the proper address be transmitted to emergency services. All right, hold music. So Dash defines hold music as after a call has reached a user and that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone, that's when this file will play. You can upload your own files. Dash will play back .wav, right, WAV, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure that they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Then you would click on the little blue and white up arrow icon. Once it finished uploading, click on Save Changes. And this will play for all your users by default whenever they press hold on their VoIP phone. Now, hours is actually part of main number. So I'm just going to click on main number. We'll just work all the way down. So first up, we have main company numbers. These three numbers, as I mentioned, they all go to the same location. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Now, if I decide I don't want to use one of these numbers any longer as a main number, I can click on this big red and white unassign button here. Said, are you sure? And I'll remove the caller ID information. And now I've removed the number as a main number. Now, it's still on my account, right? It's become a spare number now. So I can always assign it to someplace else. Or maybe I might use it again in the future. I just don't want to use it right now. In terms of adding main numbers, over here, first up, you have add from spare numbers. So any extra numbers on your account, they're available here. You can put a check mark and then add them as a selected number. Or you can buy new numbers. You got local and toll-free. Toll-free is pretty easy, right? You select the toll-free prefix you're interested in. Click on search. And the system will display available numbers in that toll-free prefix. And you can find one that you like. Click add, and now it's in your little cart. Got the number here. You can remove it if you decide to change your mind. You can also add multiple numbers at once. And then you would click on buy numbers. Now the system is going to verify that the number was truly available and then add it to your account. And there it is. Right, local numbers, you need to know the area code you're interested in. Right, so let's say I want to do 415. And there's nothing available, right? 415 is San Francisco. It's probably been exhausted for a long time. So in that case, you would need to either know an overlay, right? So an area code that is on the same geographic area, or you'd want to look for a nearby area code. So we can go for, let's see if there's anything at 650. Looks like there is not. Let's do 669. 669 is actually San Jose. It's a newer overlay. But same process beyond that. Select the number, click buy. Now, if you have to have a phone number in an exhausted area code, right? So let's say that 415, you can send a request to our porting team, right? porting@virtualpbx.com, and they'll need to know the area code you're interested in it. Now, with that, when we place a phone number or an area code on back order, that means we're waiting for someone to give up a phone number in that area code. We don't know when that's going to happen, so we can't give you an ETA on when you're getting that phone number, and you're not going to have a choice on what the number is. It just becomes someone gave up a 415 number, we were able to grab it, and we assigned it to your account. Now you notice there's a little gear icon here next to the numbers, so you can adjust the caller ID, right? So I can put CNAM information. I can also turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM, and that would show up on my VoIP phone users displays. Here's the E911, so I can add a specific address to a phone number. We also have Prepend. This is a VoIP feature. This allows you to put text here. All right, so I can click Save Changes. So now the words Bay Area promo will show up as part of the caller ID on my users' VoIP phones, right? So their phone will ring, they'll look at it, hopefully, and they'll see Bay Area promo. So they know what the call's about, and then they'll see the inbound caller ID of the person who's calling. Now, obviously, if their screen isn't very big, they may not get all of that information. Something to be aware of. All right, next up, we have office hour strategy. You can be a 24-hour open office, right? Meaning you're open all the time, or you can be custom office hours. Now, once you select custom office hours, then each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of that day. And then in the boxes here to the right, you want to select your open hours in 24-hour/military time. Something like that. Now, towards the bottom, you also have the option to put a check mark to say if you're closed for lunch, right? That means your whole office is closed for lunch. Put a check mark there and include your lunch hours. And then unfortunately it's cut off here. You would click on Save Changes. Then we have office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark. Then over here to the right, you have Add Holidays. You have three options: single day, date range, or advanced. Right? Each one of those would create a new row. Single day, like Halloween, we have here. Right? You give it a name and you select the month and the date. Right? Then you'll click on Save Changes. Date range would be like right down here we have for Xmas break. You give a start date and an end date. Notice that there's no year indicator here. Right? So you would want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which is why you see here I have a separate one for New Year's Eve and a separate one for New Year's Day. And then advanced is like this retreat option here, where I'm saying, hey, the third Friday in May, we're on holiday, right? It's company picnic day. So this pull down here in the middle pull down, this allows you to, it's first through fifth as well as last. You know, obviously the month and then a day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, then we have incoming call handling. Now, this refers to my main numbers, right? So those are those three that I left up there. You see now I have open hours, I have a lunch hours tab, an after hours tab, and a holidays tab. So first up here, we have calls come to the virtual receptionist. If I click on virtual receptionist, it opens up a new window. On the left, main menu. This is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system. You would click on add route to give them a new menu option, right? So I could, you have the default action, 0 through 9, as well as the star key to choose from. And then the second pull down, you choose where you want it to go. So like here, right? Smart PBX directory, the dial by name directory. I can send it to a specific person, right? One of my users. I can send it to a call queue, meaning an Acd Cue, which is an add-on feature. Devices, meaning I'm sending it to a specific phone. I can send it to a media file, right? This is a greeting or a music file. Now, once that greeting is done, the call ends. Likewise, when you send it to a device, if that device doesn't have a voicemail built into it, like a cell phone, then the call will either just keep ringing until the inbound caller hangs up, or may just, actually, I think it ends after about 60 seconds. And then lastly, you have the option to, you can send calls to ring groups, like departments. An advanced call flow, this example here is Spanish. So that would be if I'm making use of submenuing. To do this, you need to have the multiple auto attendants on your account, which is a plan specific feature. But then I could then do something like, press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. Each one of those options, right, has its own greeting and own menu options that goes to their own staff people. And then lastly, the option to go to a voicemail box. To the right, we got first up, we got our greetings. Right, first up is text to speech. You just type in what you want the system to say. You have up to 250 characters. You can go a little bit longer, but 250 for sure I know works. Anytime I've gone over it, I haven't found a consistency about going over 250 at this point. Right, you would click update, save, and then save changes. This is a greeting that comes off computerized, or robotic sounding voice. This is good for testing the system out, right? So if you're a startup or you've never used a PBX system before, not a bad way to start. One thing to keep in mind about the text-to-speech greeting is that every time you click update and save changes, the system reuses the file name, right? So you can have many files that say main open hours menu TTS. And when you look at it on your greetings tab, they all have the same name and you won't know which one is which. So my suggestion is after you make a text-to-speech greeting, go to your greetings tab, find that greeting, and change the name to something you'll recognize. So that way, if you have to make a minor change, right, then you won't have two files that have the same name, so you can easily differentiate between them and then get rid of the one you no longer need, or flip back and forth as needed. You can upload your own file. Again, find the file on your computer, .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You can choose from an existing file, right? So anything you've already uploaded, recorded over the phone, or text-to-speech, you can pick from this fold down, and then you would click Update, Save, and Save Changes. You can record it over the phone. Now, the system here says pick up a phone registered to the account. What that means is a VoIP phone. Even if you add cell phones or landlines by default, the system won't allow you to record a main greeting over the phone unless it's a VoIP phone on the account. Then the other thing you need is this thing right here, the PIN number. So by default, you pick up a VoIP phone on the account, you call your main number, you enter this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this time of day. You notice up top here, it says virtual receptionist open hours. So this PIN number is only good during my open hours. Right? If I call after hours, this PIN number won't work. One thing to know about recording it over the phone, if you already have a greeting in place, right? So you call in and you hear your normal main greeting. If you choose to record over the phone, the system will overwrite that file that you just heard, right, with the new greeting. So typically, like for holiday seasons, people like to have a new holiday greeting. Be a little cautious about recording it over the phone because you might overwrite your normal main greeting. Right? So either change the file that's selected, right, under choose from an existing file, or record the holiday greeting separately and upload. Right. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, who we have partnered with. They do their own billing. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, their own packages, etc. They deliver via email, so then you would just upload your own file. Then we have these settings. So first up, we have a number of retries on misdial. What this means is how many times can your inbound caller make a mistake, right? One is typically fine, maybe two, depends on what you think is best for your customers. But basically, call comes in, they hear the main greeting. Let's say that that person calls in and they press 3, which is not a valid option. That counts as a mistake, right? So then the system will replay their greeting, and now they're on their one retry, right? So now if they hit 3 a second time, in this case, the system's going to send it to my default action, which is my smart PBX directory. If I get rid of this default action, the call will simply end. And the system will tell the caller, we did not hear a valid entry, goodbye. All right, dialing timeout. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes the person's done. So in that example, right, when the caller comes in and press 3, the system waits for 10 seconds, says, oh, you're done, you meant 3, invalid entry. For most people, I recommend changing this down to 5, if not less. All right, here we got allow outside recording. So by default, this is off. If I turn this on, now when I want to record a greeting over the phone, I can use a cell phone or a landline. I still need to know that PIN number and make sure I'm calling in at the correct time of day. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And that means people can, if they know the extension number, they can dial it. So if I turn it off, that means the inbound caller, they can only press a menu option. Right? Doesn't matter if they know the extension number, system won't accept it. And then here, this is the suppress the playing of invalid entry. By default, it is off, meaning someone presses, say, 3, they get a message saying that was an incorrect response. Now, you can turn this on. That means the system won't tell them they made a mistake. And at the end, it won't tell them, we didn't recognize your entries, goodbye. Right? It will simply end the call. So any changes you make under main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you need to click Save here at the bottom, and then it'll take you back to incoming call handling, and you need to click Save Changes here. Right, so you're clicking Save twice, essentially. All right. Second option, call comes in. I'm offering it to the front desk, which is a ring group. If they don't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Right? This is a live operator answer. You need someone, or in this case, a group of people, have a chance to answer the call first. If they're not able to get it, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Up here, this is a pull down, right? So you can select an individual user. You can select to go to a call queue. You can select to go to a specific phone. You can select it to a ring group. You can select it to a media file. I don't recommend that just because it can be confusing to your inbound caller, right? Because they'll hear the media file first, then they'll get to your virtual receptionist where they'll hear another greeting play or possibly the same greeting, which could throw people off. Here's the ring groups and then advanced call flows. This virtual receptionist, now since I'm on lunch hours, it's different, right? But it's the same basics as we looked before. Now, let's say I go to lunch hours and then I switch it to this. Right now, it's the same virtual receptionist we were looking at previously. So each of your subtabs can have a different virtual receptionist to reflect a different time of day. Here, call goes in. I'm offering it to John, sorry. And then if he doesn't pick up, it goes to Fred's voicemail. And these are pull downs. This has the same options as the middle option, but with one addition. And that's this one here, where I can send it straight to voicemail. Now, often, this comes up more often for holidays, especially for a very small business. Right? One or two person show, and they're like, oh, no, we're taking time off for the holidays. Right? Just send all the calls to voicemail, usually what happens. The last option here is because I have that additional attendant, so I can send calls to my secondary attendant if I want to. All right, main conference number, you can add additional numbers if you want, just like before. You can add from spare or buy new numbers. You also have an option to make your own text-to-speech greeting for your conference room. Click Enable. Again, type it in, 250 characters, and then click on Save. Even if you don't have this enabled, when people call your conference number, right, the system has a default greeting in place. It says, welcome to the conference. Please enter your conference room number, right? And then it'll prompt them for the PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have the one. Once you've added a number, you can edit the fax box here. And first up, you got the inbound notification, right? So this is the email address that gets an email anytime someone sends a fax in. It will also get an email if someone dials your fax box number and hangs up, right? They'll get a failed inbound fax attempt. The email permissions, this is for your outbound faxing. You can put your company domain, like we have here. That means anyone with, in this case, a virtualpbx.com email address, they can send a fax out from this account, even if they're not a user on it. Yeah, otherwise, you can put like an individual email address so that this one email address can send faxes out. All right, next up is auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's on some plans and not others, and allows you to create multiple auto attendants. There are two major use cases that come up for this. The first one I've already mentioned, right? Submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. Then I have additional menus where I have like a specific Spanish greeting and a specific English greeting. And my menu options, like for the Spanish side, would go to my Spanish-speaking staff members, whereas my menu options on the English would go to my English-speaking staff members. The other use case is for someone who has multiple small businesses, right? Each business has their own main number or main numbers. They have their own main greeting, right? Because let's say you have a dog walking business and a cleaning business, probably two very different greetings. But you have the same staff members answering calls for these businesses. That's where you would want to have multiple auto attendants. Up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. Right? This is just a suggestion, right? So you can edit this and make it a completely different extension number. And then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. And then you have this option here. Is it available or is it unavailable in main menu? Or if you click on it, available in main menu. Right? So when it's unavailable, that means it's a standalone attendant. When it's available, that means it's a submenu option. Right? It can be an option from one of your virtual receptionists. It can be other options for like groups or what have you. We'll get to that. All right, but typically, if it's unavailable, that means it's its own business. Whereas if we look at Spanish here, right, it's available in main menu, and that makes sense since we've already seen it available under the virtual receptionist. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. Again, add from spare or buy new. They can have multiple. You got a little gear icon here to set up caller ID and E911. You can have multiple extension numbers for an attendant. Now the extension number is typically for your staff members, right? They can literally, so someone could call into under my main numbers, call in and actually say, oh, I actually meant to call, Pooch Walk. Your staff members could just transfer the call directly to this extension. That inbound caller will act as if they called the 408 number here. And if we click on here under the wrench icon under settings, right, on that transfer, they go to the virtual receptionist. Notice I have lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. These times, right, or dates in case of holidays, these will match what we already set up under main number. Right? So if you have a business that's open 7 days a week and another that's open 5 days a week, you might run into some issues in terms of how the routing is going to work, right? Just because one of them won't have the same schedule. In that case, you either have to look at custom work, which you'd have to talk to our account services team, or look at a second account, which would also, again, talk to our account services team. They can go over what is a better option for you and get the full scope of what you're looking to do. Oops. Now, you only have the option to send calls to the virtual receptionist. And again, each one of these, it would be its own menu. Right? So its own menu options, own greeting, etc. Devices shows all your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, right? So we can't send a call to it. Green means it's registered, so we can send a call to it. And then black means it's been disabled or turned off. If you click up here, add new device, you have these options. First up is SIP phone, right? This is that physical VoIP phone. It's on a desk. Now, these manufacturers have models that we support auto provisioning for. You click on the name, you can see the models that are supported, right? Some have quite a few, others not so much. So you would click on your manufacturer, you would find your model, you give it a name, right? So say Dylan's phone, and then we need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone. Often a sticker on the back of the phone. You can also, with the phones plugged in under menu status or basic settings, MAC is usually listed there as well. Then you would click on create device. And then under users, you would add the device to a user. Now, in terms of Dash, you're done. Right? There's nothing else you can do. However, you do need to get into that phone's web user interface. And add a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go get your config file. For the specifics of that, for those various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages, right? So go to virtualpbx.com, look in the blue bar, click on support, and then on the left, click on support guides. And then I think you scroll down, it's about a third of the way down. On the right, you're looking for a document called auto provisioning phones. You should also be able to use the search bar on the virtualpbx.com site, look up auto provisioning phones. That document will have screenshots for these various manufacturers of where to go, the URL syntax, right, the proper formula for that, and in some cases, settings to double check. Right, you basically enter that URL, double check those settings, click update or confirm or save, varies from manufacturer, and then you tell the phone to auto provision. At that point, the phone basically goes on the internet, goes to that URL that you entered, it gets its config file, downloads it. It's going to reboot a couple times. Once it's done rebooting, it should show up as a green device here. And then you're able to make and receive calls from it. All right, next up we have cell phone. Cell phone and the landline are the same. You just need to give a device name, right? So Bob's phone. And then you put in the number. You need the plus sign, the number 1, an area code and phone number. Then you click on create device. You click on here, right? That's an international number. But if you click on options, this is standard cell phone or landline settings. So call comes in to your Dash account, and then we send it out to, say, a cell phone, right? Your cell phone rings, you pick up, you're going to hear from the system by default, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, yes, you want to take this call, right? When we hear the 1 tone, connect the call, you're talking to the customer. Now, if, for instance, you actually used a cell phone device to send calls to an automated answering service for your after-hours calls, right? Well, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. In fact, it doesn't even know it should press 1. So what you would want to do is, after you add that device, right, click on Advanced, click on Options, and then right here where it says Allow Use of Cell Phone's Voicemail, put a check mark here, click on Save Changes. So now when we send a call out to that device, as soon as we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no need to press 1 or anything. It's just pickup tone, connect the call. Great for automated answering service, or if you're sending calls to another system, right, that has an auto attendant. Maybe not great if it's going to your personal cell phone, right? Because if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat that like a connected call, so the inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. That's a preference option, right? That's if you like that, great, leave it as so. If you don't, then you want to make sure this is unchecked. The other one that comes up is this keep original caller ID. By default, when a call comes to you on a cell phone or landline, right, we keep the original caller ID. That means the person who's calling you, their phone number shows up on your caller ID or on your phone's display. Now, for instance, right, customer Mary is calling you, you look at your cell phone, I don't recognize that number. I've already had 5 calls today about extending my auto warranty. So yeah, I'm just gonna let this one go, right? And I'll get voicemail and call the person back. Unfortunately, by the time you called back, Mary has moved on and went to one of your competitors. So in that instance, you might want to uncheck this one here, keep original caller ID. So now what happens is when the call comes to your cell phone, you see your company number, not customer Mary's phone number. And what I mean by your phone number, go back to the dashboard here, whatever number you selected up here as your company caller ID, that's the number that would show up on your cell phone. So it's a way to let you know, oh, this is a work call. All right, soft phone. First, there's this warning message here, essentially about wireless VoIP technology, meaning if you call 911 from a wireless VoIP phone, You may not be at the correct address that is associated with your VoIP phone, so emergency services might go to the wrong spot. So once you acknowledge that, then you have here, this is a third-party soft phone. So you would give it a name, you would copy the SIP username, and when you click on the SIP password, you would copy this and paste it, right? And then you have your account realm, which you would copy and paste. Those are the three key pieces of information you would need to program, say, a soft phone application from Counterpath, right? Or a VoIP phone that didn't show up on that list under the SIP phone list. You would then click on Create Device, and then eventually assign it to a user, and then you would need to work on programming or provisioning that application or device. All right, the Greetings tab, this shows your media files on your account, right? TTS, that means text to speech. Upload means you uploaded it. And recording means it was recorded over the phone. You can download these files so you can listen to them to make sure they're still relevant. You can always click on the wrench icon. This is where you would change the name and or delete it because it's no longer relevant, or it was like a test one. You don't need anymore. And you notice here I have a main open hours menu, TTS at the top, and then I have another one down here. So I would need to check which one is actually relevant or current, and then delete the other one or rename them both. All right, groups, shorthand for ring groups or hunt groups, right? These are departments. And at the top here, you click Add Group. Groups are included in all accounts, so there's no additional fee. You give the group a name and you give it an extension number. And then you click and drag the staff members that are in this group. And then you would click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on the name here. You can change the name here, and then you also have group call attempts. Little arrows over here to the right. This lets you control how many times the inbound caller is offered to your staff members. So in this case, I'm offering it twice. Now, if I click on the members box, you see here along the top, these are timestamps. This last one here, you can edit. It defaults to 120 seconds. And then you see my staff members. Now, if I click distribute, it will equalize the ringing time to each one of my staff members. These are sliders. So I can click and drag, and I can do something like this. Oops. I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing or ring all. Assuming I can click and drag properly, which apparently I'm having problems with today. Right, so this is ring all, right? So call comes in, all my staff members' phones ring until one of them picks up. Right, whereas distribute, I'm ringing an order. If I want to change the order, right, I need to click and drag people's names around. Now, as of right now, I still haven't changed the ring order, right? David, myself is still first. But if I click distribute now Michael's first. Something to keep in mind on groups. Group members, they can answer calls on cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. Right? System doesn't care. However, it's going to ring all of them at the same time for the user. Right? So if I have 4 different devices on my user and a call comes to me from this front desk group, all 4 of my devices ring until I pick up. Now, let's say a call comes in and Michael answers because he's the first person in the group, and then a second call comes in. If his phone that he answered on has call waiting, he's going to hear a call waiting beep, right, until the call moves on to the next person. Even under ring all, right? Let's say I have a little bit more of an overlap, right? So call comes in, Michael's on that first call, second call comes in, he's still going to hear a call waiting beep until either Fred or the tester pick up, or until his ring time ends. Now, if I want to remove someone, let's say I want to remove this tester person, right? I can just click on remove. I can click on add user up here and add people into the group. And then any changes, I click on save changes. Groups can have extensions, right? They can have multiple, as well as they can have their own phone numbers, right? Add to spare by new. Now, for a phone number that goes to a group or to a user, actually, that phone number is available all the time, right? It's not going to pay attention to your hours of operation. So if you have group members in here that have their personal cell phones, right, they can get a call at 2 in the morning. Whether it's legit or not, don't know, but this phone number is going to work at that all the time. Then we have the group features box. First up, we have ringback. This allows you to have a media file instead of the ringing sound, right? So by default, caller enters the option to get to a ring group. The inbound caller just hears that ringing sound as we're trying to reach your users. If you enable ringback and then upload a media file, right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, instead of the system piping back that ringback sound that we're getting from your users, we instead play the media file. Now, if for some reason your user's devices is not giving us that ringing sound, then no media file plays because there's nothing to replace. Next action, if you enable this, what you're doing is, if no one is able to answer, right, and I'm giving my staff members 2 opportunities to answer a call, what do I want to do with that caller? So I can send them back to my main open hours menu, right? I can send it to one of my secondary attendants, the one that's available in main menu. I can send it to a call queue by half queues. I can send it to a specific device, right? A specific phone. I can send it to a different ring group. Actually, looks like I can send it back to the original. Nope, yeah, I can send it to a different ring group, excuse me. Or I can send it to a user, right? So a specific person. And then lastly, a specific voicemail box. And then you click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If this enabled, then you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding, right? So they're not at their normal desk phone, they're sending calls to their cell phone. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can have additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID. We probably want to do one or the other versus both, like this example here, just because that's a lot of information that's going to show up on your VoIP phone's displays. And some of it, like the caller ID of the actual person who's calling, might get cut off. All right, numbers shows your phone numbers on the account, numbers in use, specifically where they're going. All right, you have the gear icon next to these numbers, so you can always adjust the caller ID E911. Spare numbers you're not using. Now, if you want to remove these numbers, because you have too many phone numbers and you want to reduce your bill a little bit, then under your spare numbers, you put a check mark in front of a number. So we'll get rid of these 2. Now I have this option to delete, which I click on. It's asking me, are you sure? I confirm the deletion, and now those numbers are no longer on my account. Now I can buy numbers here under spare numbers, right? Local or toll free, same process, it just adds them both here, right? As a spare numbers instead of directly to where you want to use them. Port, this starts the port process. You give it a name, select US, local, or toll free, click next. Then you need to upload a copy of your bill and acknowledge that this is within 30 days. Then after that, it asks you for the phone number you're porting and your address that's associated with that phone number. It then gives you the opportunity to download a blank letter of agency or LOA. And then you can upload a completed and signed LOA. You then need to click on 4 checkboxes and then click submit. That will upload your documents, and you should get an email right away acknowledging that you submitted the documents. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team, meaning that an actual person has looked at your port request and likely submitted it, and basically send you an email saying, here's what to expect. Right? Now, if there's a problem with your documents, let's say for whatever reasons, one came through unreadable, right? Or your LOA wasn't signed, right? They'll let you know that ahead of time before they submit it. Because like an unsigned LOA will get rejected, right? And that it may not get rejected right away, right? We'll submit it. Let's say the porting person missed that it wasn't signed. They submit it. The losing carrier doesn't have to respond right away. They can wait a few days, and then they'll respond saying, unauthorized signature. Because when you look at it, then it's like, oh, it wasn't actually signed. So we do try to double check to make sure that there's no immediate like auto rejection kind of things before we submit it. Now, the LOA, right, letter agency, it asks you for company information and address and whatnot. That should match what your current carrier has on file for you. Usually you can match what they have on the invoice. You can always double check with their porting department to make sure what should be there. As I mentioned, it does need to be signed and dated within 30 days. Trying to think if there's any other major hiccups. That's usually about it. Ports, like local numbers can take on average, take about 2 to 3 weeks. They can be complete faster. Like I've had like a Google Voice number can port by the next business day. Toll-free numbers, typically 3 to 5 business days. And both of those time estimates assume everything is correct, right? If we get a rejection, it's a fairly generic message. Like we'll get address mismatch. If we're lucky, they'll tell us the street number is wrong or the zip code is wrong, but they don't always do that, right? We pass that information back to you saying, this is a rejection notice we got. Try to verify with your current carrier what it should be. And then hopefully we can get it going. All right, users, shows your users on the account. Gray person, standard user. Blue suit, admin. You click here at the top, you click add user, you fill out the form. So first and last name, pretty easy. Email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each user, right? So I can't reuse support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different people. It's only going to work for one. You create the password, and then you give them an extension number. This is a suggestion here. This account started with extension 1000. You can enter in any number you want. Let's say you're starting a new business. So new people, they start with extension 5000. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user at the same time. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to that user. You can choose here at creation if you want them in the user directory. You can always change your mind later. Here we've got send emails to an alternate address. Now, so in terms of like voicemail notifications, right? By default, those get sent to the email address used for login. If for some reason you don't want the email address used for login to get like voicemail notifications or password resets, that sort of thing, that's when you would use send to an alternate address. And then what I think is pretty important, send credentials to the user, right? So after you click on create user, they will get an email saying, here's your login information. Or if you need to add more people, you click on create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name, right? You can change their name, or you can change their credentials, right? So their email address and password. You also have the option here to resend or send the password reset email to them directly. Say, for instance, the passwords you create Aaron here can never remember. Here, create your own. Voicemail box PIN, just a 4-digit PIN number. This is a temporary, so that way your users can then adjust, log in themselves over the phone, for example, change their PIN number and create a voicemail greeting. Now, for your users that are going to make use of VoIP phones, you don't need to create a PIN number for them, right? Because their voicemail box is intrinsically tied to them, and then you add a VoIP phone, they can pick up their VoIP phone, hit *98 on their VoIP phone, and then click send. That will automatically log them into their voicemail box. The first time they do that, the system will prompt them to create a PIN number and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Right. Your cell phone and landline users, you do need to create a PIN number for. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here, oops. This pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Then we've got the time zone. So you have the count default or just search for the city that you want them to be in a time zone. That's important for voicemail timestamps. The flag here, that's for your default language or display language for the dashboard pages for this particular user. Oops. You got English, French, German, or Russian to choose from. Then you've got ringing timeout. This is how much time the system will try to ring a device on the user. The default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time to a landline or VoIP phone. If someone's using primarily cell phones, you're going to want to increase this to about 45 seconds. It simply takes longer to route calls to a cell phone than to a landline, right? In terms of how PBX systems in general work, right? The call comes into the user, then we try to reach the user devices. When we try to reach out to a landline, right? We send the call to the landline telecom, they go, oh, it's right here. And they send the call straight through because they know exactly where that phone is. Whereas when we send a call out to a cell phone telecom, they say, hold up a second, we need to find them first. Right? They ping the cell phone towers to find you, then they route the call to the cell phone. That delay, in terms of trying to find the cell phone, is why you would need a longer ring time for calls going to a cell phone than to a landline or a VoIP phone. Extensions. Users can have multiple extensions. If you ever want to change a user's extension, I recommend first adding the new extension, right? And then clicking Save Changes, and then unassigning the original extension. Just makes it easier and less error. Going to work 24/7. Devices. You can click on New Device, so you can add these devices straight to a user. Now let's see. All right, so one thing I wanted to show is under here, New Devices, Soft Phone. You have additional option here. So when you add a soft phone directly to a user, you get an additional option where it says use third-party application, which is the default. If you click on that, it now says use VirtualPBX application. So then you just need to give it a device name, right? So in this case, John's phone. I would click on create device, and then I would click on save changes. Once I click on save changes, the system will then email John his soft phone username and password, as well as download links. Right? So your soft phone will use different credentials than your user login. Then you download the app to your relevant device and log in, and then you can make and receive calls from the VirtualPBX soft phone application. The other thing, I think actually I might have forgot this under devices. The web phone counts as a soft phone, or can or technically a soft phone, right? But you just give it a device name. You click on create device. Actually, let's do that again. And I like to label them either web phone or soft phone, so I know the difference by looking at the name. Click on Save Changes. The web phone, right? If you go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, it uses the dash credentials. So Michael, he can go to that the web phone page, and he would log in using his same email address, same password, and the account name. Right? The soft phone uses its own, right? It has separate credentials. All right. Users have features. Caller ID number. This is only available for a user that has their own phone number. And essentially what you're saying is they select their phone number as their outbound caller ID, replacing the default on the dashboard page. Call forward. Now, call forwarding, your users can turn on themselves. They can either do that through the user portal, which we'll get to at the very end, or they can do it on the VoIP phones using feature codes. Failover mode is something an admin has to set up, right? And this comes into play when the VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right? The system detects that. Call happens to come into the user at that time. Failover call forwarding will then automatically send it to the device you designate. +1 area code and phone number. Click on Save Changes. All right, on, this means it's on all the time, but again, your staff members can set this up themselves. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. You enable it, you need a hot desk ID. I usually say just make it their extension number. Especially if you're using 4-digit extensions, click on Save Changes. Now, what this means is when Aaron comes into the office, right? Let's say you're in a hybrid scheduling, right? In terms of some people, people work maybe a couple of days a week in the office. So Aaron comes in on Tuesday, he sits down at desk number 7, he picks up the VoIP phone there, he hits *11. That turns hot desking on that phone. It will prompt him for his hot desk ID. Once he does that, the system will tell them calls will now be sent to this device. So for the rest of his workday, as he's sitting at desk number 7, any call that should be going to him, right? Whether he's in a queue, a group, or just someone dials the extension, that phone that he's sitting at will ring. And if his day, he just needs to pick up the VoIP phone, hit *12 to turn off hot desking, he goes home. Next time Aaron comes into the office, let's say that's on Thursday, comes in, Alicia's already sitting at desk number 7, he waves to her, moves on, he sits down at desk number 22. Does the same thing, picks up the VoIP phone, *11, hot desk ID, now calls are coming to him at desk 22. Voicemail. Right, voicemail box was created for the user by default. And these are your standard settings. Now, transcription is a plan-specific feature, but basically that's the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it up in the email notification as best as it can determine. All right. By default, the system is going to send an email and attach the voicemail as an attachment. The MP3 file you can just double click on, listen to it on your computer or even your cell phone. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they become full and no one else can leave a message. So you have the option here, delete the messages from the database after sending the notification. What that means is, right, system sends out the voicemail notification with the attachment. Once that email's out, the system deletes the voicemail from the account. So now there's no other way to check the voicemail, right? You can't call in over the phone. You can't look at it in the user portal. You only have the email. But it's a way to make sure voicemail boxes don't get full, so that way people can always leave a message. Fax box, users can have their own fax boxes if you want them to. Typically not necessary, but there are special cases where you want that to happen. So first you would click enabled, and then you have to decide, are you giving them a number, right? So they have their own fax number, or are you just simply giving them an extension? Now, if you give the fax box only an extension, that means this person, right? So Aaron, he can only receive faxes. He's not going to be able to send a fax out. And that is because when he tries to send a fax out, the system knows he has a fax box and grabs his fax box information as part of the outbound caller ID. In this case, 399, that's great as an extension number, but it's not a valid outbound caller ID, not enough digits. So the fax will fail. So if you have a user that needs to send and receive faxes, right, choose a phone number. If you're not sure, then I would say default to using a phone number. Now, if you're creating a user that's just there to receive faxes, right? So it's like, your contracts user. So that's where everyone faxes your contracts to. Probably an extension is fine. Now, in terms of how that fax gets to the extension number, that might be a different kettle of fish, right? Because now you're relying on that person who's faxing, call your main number, right? They get to the virtual receptionist, they enter 399, then they have to hit send fax on their fax machine. Or, if their fax machine lets them, they can program, right? Phone number like ** or comma 399, right? So it tells the fax machine, dial this number, wait a couple seconds, and then enter 399, then send fax. Your electronic fax services may or may not be able to send faxes to an extension. Like that might be an upgrade for them in terms of, giving them that capability. The ones I have tried so far, they don't even provide an option to send faxes to an extension. You can only send faxes to a phone number. Conference bridge. So Aaron is able to host a conference. When you enable it on a user as an admin, the only thing you need to set is the personal conference room PIN, and then you click on Save Changes. The user can change the PIN numbers themselves via the user portal. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. So let's switch over here to Fred. Right, so let's turn it off. All right, so when you first enable it, this is what it looks like. If I click enabled and save changes, any call to Fred, it would go to his voicemail, right? Because the system is being told not to ring his devices. Right? Do not ring over here on the far right. Now, if I uncheck these, right, now I have little green bars, so I can click and drag. Right, these are timestamps just like in groups, right? So I can change this to 60 seconds if I want, but that means I can click distribute. And likewise, I can change the order and then click on Save Changes. Now, if Fred is in a ring group, right? And so I have it set where it calls his devices in order. Calls from that ring group are going to ignore his follow me settings, right? It's going to ring them both at the same time. Music on hold, you can choose to have users have their own hold music. You would just enable the feature, upload a .wave.mp3.ogg file, or select from the pull down from the existing files on the account, and then click on Save Changes. This will supersede the music on hold we uploaded on the dashboard page. Customize call recording. So by default, when you enable it, it looks like this. And you have to tell the system what kind of calls you want recorded. Right? Inbound internal means a coworker call. Right? We'll say John called Aaron. You can choose to record that. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called. Outbound internal means Aaron called, or Fred here called Aaron. Right? Outbound external means Fred called customer Mary. And then you click on Save Changes. Do not disturb just means if you enable it, calls to the user go to voicemail or not offered to them in the case of groups or queues. Voicemail boxes. So users, right, automatically have a voicemail box. That's why there's their names in the column here. The main voicemail box the system creates automatically, but you can also add or create your own. Right? You just give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and click on Create New Voicemail Box. The reason you would do that would be for like your ring groups or for your Acd Cues. No matter what though, you can click on the little wrench icon here. You can change the name, change the voicemail box number, although not generally recommended for users, and then the PIN number, right? That's to access the voicemail box over the phone. If you go under advanced, you've got greeting media. You can upload, okay, so the default is the media, right? That's your normal greeting that plays. So you can upload a file here, choose one from the pull down, or you can record over the phone, right? Because you would just need the voicemail box number and the PIN number, which you would want to enter something here in that case. But once you have a greeting media selected, then you would click on Save Changes. The temporary file, this is for your out of office or vacation message. So if something is selected under temporary, it supersedes what's on the media, right? And then you would want to put the temporary back to none when the person is back in the office. Recipients, now your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, but for any voicemail box you create manually, you want to click on Add New Recipient and then enter an email address, and then you keep clicking Add to add additional people. And once you're done, you click on Save Changes, and then under Advanced Options. So once you have a voicemail greeting in place and a recipient in place, you click on Already Set Up. And then you see here, you have the option here, do you want delete after notification? Right, you already have the attached message if you want, and then you would click on Save Changes. All right, advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access is. This is a feature that allows you to call in with a cell phone or landline, log in over the phone essentially, and then you can make an outbound call. And when you make an outbound call, instead of your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, be your main company number. All right, so first you would click on Enable. Then you want to click Edit Settings, and I recommend you add an extension number. All right, so now you can call into your main number, right? That goes to the virtual receptionist. You enter in this extension number. The system will ask you for the PIN number. And then you'll hear dial tone, right? Then you enter area code and phone number that you're trying to reach out to. Now, instead of your cell phone number showing up, right, it's this phone number shows up as the outbound caller ID. Now, by default, this is not enabled on new accounts. And this is because this opens your account up to potential fraud, right? If someone's able to figure out your PIN number and the extension number, they can make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it. And that's why even here, I disable it once I'm done showing you about it. Now, if you're interested in having DISA enabled on your account, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. They'll review the potential for fraud, etc., with you and go from there. Next up, we have the call logs. This is one way you could see if people are making calls on your account without your knowledge, because you could see the left arrow here going, the yellow left arrow, right? That's an outbound call. I can see this was coming from a VoIP phone though, so that's not that big a deal. Green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call, and that looks like it didn't go anywhere. They essentially called the number and hung up. You can hear on this one here, call came in and went to this VoIP device. You can always click on the little hydrant icon here to create an email that goes to our support team. It's going to have the technical details of the call. I would ask that you include your experience, right? Like bad call quality, or your phone didn't actually ring, just so we know what's going on and we can investigate properly. Now, you can always download these files as .csv, right? The call logs, you can go back 1 year and still get the call log information and then download it if necessary. Beyond that, our engineering team can go up to additional 6 months and get the files for you. Beyond that, though, there's nothing we can do, right? The call information is removed. So if you need to keep your call history for whatever reasons, I would suggest every month coming in, doing the custom, right, filter for the month range, and then download the file. If you have heavy call volume, then you may need to do a week by week, because the system will take a long time if you have heavy call volume. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned a couple of these, but these allows VoIP phone users typically to access different features of Dash. This is also published on our support pages. And there's also a document under the support pages called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has a brief description of what these do. All right. Next up is Acd Cues. So Acd stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. This is an add-on feature for various plans. So not all plans you can add this onto, so you might need to change your plan and then add on queues. We also have Acd Cues Pro, which is has more features to them. If you're interested in Acd Cues Pro or want more information, we have a demo video on our YouTube channel, and I would suggest looking at that. I'll try to give some of the differences as we go through this. Click here to add a new queue. I'm just going to click on an existing queue here, little gear icon. So one, you give the queue a name, and then a queue can have either a phone number or an extension. Can't have both, right? Whereas groups can have both. One thing to know about queues currently, your staff members can only use a VoIP device to accept calls in a queue, right? So physical VoIP phone, soft phone, web phone. Queue routing strategy. This is the pull down. Round robin equalizes out over time. You have least or most idle, right? So whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call. Least calls, who's ever had the least amount of connected calls would get the next call that comes in. And then least offers, which is the least amount of connected and missed calls, right? So whoever's the least amount gets the next call that comes in. Hold treatment, which is a little bit hidden there because of my screen. This basically allows you to upload a music file, right? .wav, .mp3, .ogg. Now on Acd Cues Pro, not only can you upload media files, you can also have the system announce the inbound caller's position in line or their expected wait time. You can also have different media files play at different times. The queue timeout, measured in seconds. This is how much time the inbound callers can wait on hold. Queue call limit. This is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of callers that are already speaking to your staff members, right? So strictly waiting on hold. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if you don't have any staff members logged in to the queue and a call comes in, the system will treat that call as if it already hit 3,600 seconds. So then you have the escalation call flow after timeout. What do you want to do after that 3,600 seconds? If you select none, that means the call simply ends, right? But you have a pull down here where you can send it to a particular person's voicemail box. You can send it to your other attendants. You can send it to a ring group, etc. And then zero out call flow. Basically, this if you set to none, that means your inbound callers have to wait on hold or simply hang up. If you choose an option here, then they can press 0 to say leave a message, for example. Agent behavior, agent recovery time in seconds. How much time after they're done with a call will the system wait before they offers them a second call? So you can do something like 15. Now, force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if your agent misses a call, the system puts them in away mode, and their user has to put themselves as ready again in order to get calls. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds, 20 seconds, typically plenty as everyone should be on a VoIP phone. And then you click on save changes. Once queues are created, over here on the left, you click on the little members icon. So here are my available staff members who can be in a queue. Right? They're not, I don't know which queues they're assigned to, but any one of these people I can assign to a queue. If I click on manage members, now the people on my right, these are my queue people, right? They can be in the queues. The people on the left, they're not in queues. Now I can select someone, click on add as a member, and now Michael can be in the queue. I go back to the queue list. I can click on a queue. I can click on add agents. And you see there's Michael there. I can move him over, and I would need to save changes. And once you have agents assigned, let's take a look here. Then you can click on add managers. So then you can make one of your assigned users a manager for that queue. Now for your staff members, right, they would log into dash.virtualpbx.com. They would mouse over here and select queues. They would then click on begin session. You see here I'm marked away because I'm not ready to make calls yet. I would then click on my phone icon here, and I make sure to have my VoIP device selected. And then I would mark myself as ready. So now green, right, means ready to accept calls. Blue would mean I'm on an inbound call. Yellow means I'm on an external call. And I believe gold is your on wrap-up time. Now on Acd Cues Pro, there's another option here for performance. So as a manager or an admin, you can compare agents to each other in terms of like their calls handled, etc. Also, the Pro Queues, managers can eavesdrop in on a call. They can whisper, right? So they can help their staff members, or they can barge in on a call. So when I go to lunch, I would mark myself as away, and then end of my shift, I would end my session. All right, Blacklist, this is an included feature. You would click on Edit Blacklist. This allows you to create rules, or rather, you can make a list of phone numbers that you're blocking from reaching your system. Right? You would just either click Add to create a new list, or click on an existing list, give it a name, and then do you block anonymous? That means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, we'll block the call. So they get a busy tone. Beyond that, here you click on add number, you put +1 area code and phone number, and you keep clicking add to add additional phone numbers. When you're done, you click on save, you go back to settings, and then you make sure your list is over here on the right under selected. And then you click update. So now that list is active, and any phone number on that list, when they try to call in, they get a busy tone. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID from your VoIP phones. So first one here is this 408. Just click edit here. So you give it a name, you select a phone number on your account, and then in this case I'm saying whenever my staff members from their VoIP phones dial a 408 phone number, the system will change their outbound caller ID to match this 408 phone number. Right, and then I'd click on Save Changes. Now, this one here, I created a feature code. So I'm saying, basically I would have to tell my staff members, enter *550, then the area code and phone number they're going to call. When they do that 550, it's going to change their outbound caller ID to be this 323 phone number, which is one of the LA area codes. So it looks like a local call to the person they're calling. And then save changes. Faxes, this is actually your fax manager. It's available for all accounts. You can see your inbound faxes, excuse me. Right, see the date, the phone number it came from, where they're going. You can download the files. You can also see some technical details. The outbound faxes, again, you would select the fax box. Hopefully you see success, right? You see the date, the time, the number it came from, the number we're sending to, pages. You can download technical details. Now, if you see a failed entry here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other fax machine, right? It could be a busy tone, could be, they had a weird, like someone picked up on the other side and caused a weird tone to come through, what have you. The email to fax logs, if you see anything here, that means that the system had a problem with either the email address that the fax came from or the attachment itself. Right, so the system process problem. There'll be a little eyeball icon over here to the right, excuse me, that will give you some additional details. Like if someone used their personal email address versus their work email address, it'll come up as not a valid user. You'll see a problem converting document or error converting document. And that means there was a problem with the PDF typically. So in that case, you can try resaving the document, or if you can export as a PDF versus save as a PDF, that can change how the system reacts to the document. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status for your users, right? So I can see green means they're not on a call, right? Blue would mean they're on inbound, red marked away, and yellow they're on an external call. You can also switch it by their devices, right? You also have who's available and who's busy. Up here, you can see active inbound calls and who they're going to, as well as any parked calls and the parking spot number. Number manager, this basically takes you to your spare number page. So you can buy numbers, port, etc. Recording manager, this will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.net so you can view your call recordings. Every plan includes at least some amount of storage, and then there's an overage rate. You'd want to talk to our account services team to verify how much storage is included in your plan and what the overage would be. If you have an Amazon Web Services account, AWS, you can link that account to your Dash account, and then when you click on the recordings manager, it will show you the call recordings on your AWS account. Reports, this is for advanced reporting. This is a plan specific feature. This allows you to create your own reports so you can get a better idea of what's going on with your calls. Right, so when you click on this will take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. We do have a reports demo on our YouTube channel. Just go under videos and look for advanced reporting. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail manager. You can see the various voicemail boxes and see if there's any voicemails in them. Now, for any user that you have, or any voicemail box that you said delete after notification, you won't see anything here. When you do see voicemails here, right, you can put a check mark in the box in front of it, and you can move a voicemail to a different voicemail box, right? Went to the wrong person. You can play back, you can delete the messages, etc. Webhooks, this is a plan-specific feature. If you're interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our sales team, actually. This allows you to link Dash to other software. For examples of this, you can go to developer.virtualpbx.com and see samples of what we've already done. But essentially, it allows you, again, you're linking Dash to other software for additional functionality. And then we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal. So as an admin, you can't get to someone else's user portal, but you have access to basically everything, right? So you start off on the voicemail tab, right? My user doesn't have any voicemails, probably because I have delete after notification enabled. Call history, I can see my call history. I can change the date range if I want and filter, right? So I can see more of my call history. Faxes, would it work if I had my own fax box? The contact list will show me everything on my Dash account, right? So users and their extensions, groups, etc. This is not something a user can edit on their own or update on their own. The conference tab over here to the right, this is where your users would update their PIN numbers, right? The moderator PIN and the participant PIN number, plus the options to people joined muted or deafened, as well as playing entry and exit tones. Up here, this is to invite other Dash users to an existing conference, locking a conference so other people can't join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference. When you're in a conference, you can also mute specific participants as well as kick them from the conference. And then settings and devices, this is where your users would enable call forwarding. Put a check mark, +1 area code and phone number, click on save, and you can see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Let's go back to the dashboard. Haven't seen any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up today. Again, we'll be here basically every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. There might be some changes due to the holidays, but we'll try to announce that ahead of time. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.